Dottino, and this is Talk Your Talk podcast on the Aboriginal Sports Network.
What's going on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all platforms? This is a special episode of Talk Your Talk. We got Paul Dottino in the house, and we are going to talk some Giants football. So we were just talking backstage. This is a platform where I allow people to come and talk their talk about sports, whatever team, whatever sports subjects you want to talk about. Today, we got a Giants insider in the house. So P-Dot, explain to them what you were just explaining to me backstage about the off season and how it's so tumultuous and the reports that I put out there that could be false, everything. Just talk to the people real quick, because they need to hear from people that are actually inside the building.
Well, it's very hard when you're dealing with the off season because, as I was told many years ago when I started this job, even your best friends who might be scouts or part of the front office will not hesitate to lie to you because, quite frankly, during the times of free agency and the draft, there's an awful lot of misdirection going on and agendas. And quite frankly, it's not just coming necessarily from, potential leaks within a franchise, shall we say, but it can also come from players. It can come from agents, and everybody who is going to confide in you or tell you something as a reporter. You have to understand each one of those people has an agenda or a reason for telling you. And that is because they would like you to go out there and report it and therefore get a desired effect that is going to help the original snitch's information. And so that's a lot of what goes on during this time of year. Now, the shame of it is when these things get floated out there with a purpose, you're looking at stuff that gets talked about on the radio, on TV, gets written about, and it spreads like wildfire because every fan wants to, basically digest every crumb that's being said about their team. So they're very eager to chew on that stuff. The problem is what they don't realize is that a lot of it, an awful lot of it, is misdirection and window dressing. And that's the shame of it. It really goes back to the old adage, you can't believe everything you read, and you better be able to take it with a grain of salt, or in this case, a wheelbarrow full of salt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just the whole thing about the whole Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson situation, the whole quarterback situation with the Giants. Now it's first they wanted Matthew Stafford, which I truly believe I do believe they wanted Matthew Stafford.
Yes.
That fell through. Then it went from Aaron Rodgers being the guy that they wanted, but they were interested in Russell Wilson. They signed Jameis. Now it's coming out reports that Joe Shane says that they could pass on a quarterback at 3. So the whole quarterback situation in the Giants building has been in a huge flux. And I just want to, get your idea of what's going on with the quarterback position with the Giants this year, going into this year. What do you think will happen? And if there's anything that you do know, what has been happening with that quarterback position so far this year?
Well, it's quite clear that General Manager Joe Shane told everybody at the Combine, and he never pulled any punches on this. He said he's got to improve the quarterback room, and they're going to try to win as many games as possible this season, which told you, if you just listen and believe the guy at face value, don't believe reports, just listen to what the GM told you. He told you he was going to get a veteran quarterback who was going to try to win as many games as possible. So when the information came out of Los Angeles that Matthew Stafford was being allowed to explore trade opportunities, didn't it make logical sense that the Giants were going to be in on those talks? I mean, sometimes you just have to use common sense. Realize that what is there when it's being said by a team. The Rams told you that Stafford was on the market. So you had to figure the Giants were going to be in on that. I mean, that just made sense. When the Rams decided to pull back Stafford, give him the extension, give him the raise, and he stayed put. Well, now think about this. If the Giants were going to put so much money and draft capital into a Matthew Stafford, you'd have to figure by logic. That told you that they were willing to pass on a quarterback at number 3 in this draft. Because if they were so concentrated on getting Stafford, he was going to be like a 3-year solution. You follow me?
Yeah, that's a fact. If you get somebody like Stafford, yeah.
Okay. So what do? They pivot, and the next guy who made sense because of the scheme, the system they run, the situation he was in, the amount of money he was going to need, Russell Wilson made the most sense as the next guy to pivot to after Stafford. And when the Giants had Wilson in here a couple of weeks ago, Joe Schoen just told the media today, they made an offer to Wilson when Wilson came in for his interview. They made the offer. They told him, we'd like you to sign. They didn't wait for Aaron Rodgers to get back to them. They made the offer to Wilson. And Joe Schoen said for a variety of reasons, it took 11 days of negotiation to get the Russell Wilson deal done. He told everybody this. So what does that tell you about everything you've heard for the past 2 weeks?
There's been a bunch of baloney. They were never interested in Aaron Rodgers like that.
Okay. So, and I believe they had contact with him. I mean, my understanding was that the Giants did have some Zoom interviews with Wilson because, let's face it, what if Russell Wilson decided to go back to Pittsburgh or went somewhere else? The Giants needed a veteran winning quarterback. So I don't doubt that Rodgers was a possibility. But as we now know, Joe Schoen spent 11 days negotiating with Russell Wilson, not Aaron Rodgers. So that kind of tells you where his priority was, right?
Yeah, getting a veteran quarterback to come in there.
All right. So when they signed Jameis Winston, my immediate reaction was he was signed to be a backup. Jameis Winston was always on a lower tier of quarterbacks. So was Joe Flacco. Had Flacco been signed, he would have been a backup. Winston was signed to be a backup. Okay? Joe Schoen said today, he told the media that Wilson will go into camp taking first-team snaps. Now, if for some reason he turns 55 years old overnight and looks decrepit, well, then I'm sure he's going to lose the job. But the idea is that Wilson's going to be the starter and Winston's going to be the backup. So the Giants look at it this way. They have a starter who went to the playoffs last year, who was named to the Pro Bowl, who's been to the Super Bowl twice, who had a winning record last season, and they believe can win games. So he's the starter. He's better than what Daniel Jones did last year. They improved on what Drew Lock did last year as the number 2 quarterback by signing Jameis Winston, who obviously has a lot of tools. He's had a very checkered career. It's been very inconsistent, up and down. He turns the ball over a ton. We know that. But if he's only the backup, then the odds are that he won't have enough of opportunities to have those turnovers kill you. So that makes good sense. And besides, Winston, for the reported deal he signed, actually cost you less money than Drew Lock.
Yep, he does.
Okay.
Drew Lock costed you 5, and I think Winston's around 4.
Right.
If he hits his incentives.
So you see, with the quarterback situation, is pretty obvious how the Giants have set this up. Now, Tommy DeVito's the number 3. I do suspect the Giants will go into opening day with 3 quarterbacks on the 53-man roster. Now,
Okay.
Joe Shane made it very clear today, and I'm sure for the last 2 months, you have had stories basically thrown in your face that the Giants have to draft a quarterback at number 3, right? I'm sure.
Hmm.
You
That's a
probably have
fact.
black and blues from having those stories thrown in your face.
Yeah.
Okay, the truth is they don't have to. And Joe Shane tried to make that very clear to the media again today. He's got a starter. He's got a backup. He would love to get a young franchise quarterback, but as he himself said, you all at the team at the front office level, you have to all believe that that guy is available at your position, and he's got to check all the boxes if you're going to draft him. If he does not, you don't force the pick. He's making it very clear. So I don't see what all the debate is about. He's telling you, basically, he's telling you that they're going to go in with these two guys, and there's a really good chance, probably better than not, that not only are they not taking a quarterback at 3, but they may not take one until later in the draft, if at all. He acknowledged the possibility that they may not take one, period, and wait until next year. Now, if they wait, then Tommy DeVito makes it onto the 53, probably as the 3rd quarterback. If they should draft a QB in the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th rounds, then that guy, in all likelihood, will make it as the 3rd quarterback, and DeVito will either go to the practice squad or get claimed by somebody else off waivers and wind up on someone else's team. This is pretty much the most obvious scenario that's going to happen with this club. I would be very surprised if they take a quarterback at number 3, because Cam Ward is the only quarterback in this draft who was worth picking that high, and the Titans are 99.9% sure going to take him.
So what's your thoughts on Shedeur Sanders? I think he's qualified to be picked up there as well. What's your thoughts on Shedeur Sanders? Let's say he's there at 3. Do they pass on him? Is that the feeling
I don't think there's
that you
any
get in
doubt.
the building?
You have to take Travis Hunter at 3 if he's available. Travis Hunter is a superstar in waiting, gives you value on both sides of the ball, clearly at a premier position at corner, if that's where you want to play him right away, or if he even works into the lineup as a wide receiver, that becomes an incredible wide receiver room for Russell Wilson to throw to. To me, it's a no-brainer. I've been saying it since the combine. If the Giants can take Travis Hunter at 3, that's got to be the pick.
So even over Abdul Carter, you think that he would be a better pick over Abdul Carter to where he can help out the defense?
I don't have a medical degree, but here's what I do know, that at the combine, when it was discovered, much to Abdul Carter's surprise, that he has a stress reaction or a weakness in the sole of his foot, that is significantly a question mark. That's a big deal. And now you have his agent saying he had to skip Penn State's pro day the other day because he also has an achy shoulder problem. Well, between the foot and the shoulder, my medical staff is going to have to give him a one-over with a fine-tooth comb and basically say to me, there's nothing wrong with him for me to pick an Abdul Carter. Because if he's damaged goods coming into the draft, then what have you done picking him at number 3?
So you think that, you're in the building, so you think that they're trying, with those moves that you said right there, so basically they're trying to win right now. Because if you go on Russell Wilson, you have Malik Neighbors, you get a Travis Hunter, you got Wan'Dale Robinson, Slayton's back. The moves that you made in free agency, you revamped the whole defensive secondary pretty much and got defensive pieces. You're trying to win right now. And you're saying there's no room to get any one of the top quarterbacks in that building. That's the feeling that's going in the building right now.
Well, I can't tell you what's going on in Joe Shane or Brian Dable's office. I'm not in their office. I'm in the building, but I'm not in their offices. And even if I were, I couldn't tell you what they're saying because there's a confidentiality agreement involved.
Facts.
But what I can tell you, well, I'm very upfront. I don't hide stuff, and I won't smoke you. I'm telling you flat out. Even if I was up there, I couldn't tell you what they're saying. But just let's use common sense. Let's use some logic here. I could see the Giants taking somebody like a Tyler Shuck or somebody like a Kyle McCord, perhaps on the second day of the draft, as a project to be the third stringer who would redshirt for a season, and then you see what the guy presents while he's in your building for the course of a year, learning from the two veterans. I could see that as a possibility. But again, as Joe Shane said, it's not mandatory that you take one at all. Yeah, I certainly don't see them taking one at 3. No, I don't see.
I mean, Travis Hunter would. Let's say they do get Travis Hunter. You say they're playing more at cornerback or more at receiver, because he could play both. I think he's a better receiver, but
long term, I think he's a corner. But I think when you bring him into the building, first thing you do is you tell him you're going to be a corner. You're not going to play full time both ways, okay? But here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you a small package of wide receiver plays. And when we go 4 wides or 5 wides, you might see that 8 times a game. Not a whole lot, but you'll see it some. I would say start Travis Hunter off in those packages. So this way, and by the way, Giants corners have a history of always getting hurt.
Right.
And I'm not wishing anything. I'm not wishing anything on Tay Banks, nor am I wishing anything on Paulson or Debo. But if I said to you right now that both guys are going to play full-time, starting all 17 games, you're going to tell me that's not going to happen. Because Giants corners always get hurt. So I would teach him at corner, coach him up at corner, but when he gets to camp, say, look, here's a small chapter of the playbook at wide receiver. When we're in certain packages, we're going to put you out there at wide receiver, okay? And we'll run like a double slot with you and Wan'Dale Robinson, all right? And then have Slayton on one boundary, have Neighbors on the other boundary, and all of a sudden now, that's a real headache for a defensive coordinator. Now,
that's a fact.
If those plays are only, let's say there's 8 to 10 plays a game that you're going to use him in that capacity, that won't overwhelm him. It won't. And to be frank with you, in those situations, what if he only catches 2 passes? One of them could be a 50-yard touchdown. He's that explosive. He's that good. He doesn't need a whole lot of plays on the field to make an impact as a rookie. He's that dynamic.
So they vision him more as a corner, where you vision him more as a corner. Do you bench Banks for him? Do you start him, or how do you fit him in a corner?
What you do is you have him push Banks. Tay Banks had an inconsistent season last year. We would all agree.
Yeah.
He needs to be better. So you push Tay Banks with Travis Hunter. If Banks takes the pushing the right way and, breaks out for a great third season, well, now it's marvelous because you got a Debo and Banks, and they're both playing great, and you just wait until Hunter is needed out there. In the meantime, he helps you out on some offense. Now, if Banks doesn't take the pushing like I think he will, and he winds up not playing like he's supposed to coming out of training camp, well, then maybe you start Travis Hunter. And there's nothing wrong with that either, because the kid is an incredible prospect.
Yeah, I mean, he Heisman Trophy winner. He's definitely a prospect that's not normal. Like, you don't see that hardly ever, playing both sides of the ball like that and being Heisman worthy on both sides of the ball, like on cornerback and receiver. I just think he's a better receiver than cornerback, but a lot of people think otherwise.
Well, it's easier to get production out of him at receiver than it is at corner if you're only going to use him in a small package, right?
Okay.
Because Because here's the thing. He's a boundary corner. He's not a slot corner. He's a boundary corner. It's not often that you're going to have a package of 10 plays for a boundary corner.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That doesn't happen very often. Unless, of course, one of those boundary guys is moving down into the slot, and then in certain situations, your nickel corner actually plays the boundary. But that's not going to happen with the Giants because they have Drew Phillips in the slot.
Right. You got Drew Phillips. You put Cordell Flott there too.
Yeah. So if you want to get him, that is, if you want to get Hunter on the field as a rookie, his quickest ticket to the field is giving him that small wide receiver chapter in your playbook, because he can be in a 4 wide or 5 wide set, and you can see some of those plays in week 1.
Mm-hmm. So it'll be an intriguing pick, man. I do think between him and Hunter, him and Carter, where I would go if I'm not going quarterback, I think Shedeur Sanders will be there at 3. But seems like it kind of makes sense, because if you're on the hot seat, like Mara's been saying, you have to win now. Trying to win now with a rookie quarterback at number 3 kind of doesn't make sense to the logic of that. I've said that. I do believe we still need to get our quarterback of the future here very, very soon, because there are guys like Jaden Daniels that are ascending, and man, the NFC East is getting vicious, man. It's like we are really looking like we could be in the basement for a while. Like, how do you feel this offseason made this team move going forward? Do you think we'll be able to compete with some of the teams over here in the NFC East this year? Like, how do you feel about going into the season?
Well, it's a daunting schedule based on what it looks like today.
It's crazy.
Now, you never know as the season develops who's going to get hurt, who's going to have rough spots, which guys are going to underperform. You never know, right? You just don't. But as we sit here today, it looks like a really tough schedule. So I'll tell you what Max Starks told me last week. Max Starks is a former longtime NFL offensive lineman who played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who was their radio analyst on all of their games. He watched Russell Wilson game in and game out last year. And he said to me, I think with the talent that the Giants have, especially as skill position players, and Russell Wilson having enough gas left in his tank for at least a season, he said Russell Wilson's going to get you back to being respectable and competitive and sniffing the 500 mark, to where, in his words, he said, you'll be playing meaningful games in December again. Okay. I think, to me, sign me up for that. I'd go for that in a heartbeat.
So, but what do you do after the season with Russell Wilson? If it was that hard to get him to sign that 1-year, $10 million deal where it could go up to $21 million based off incentives, and let's just say he does get us close to the playoffs, what do you do at quarterback after that? Because if it was that hard to get Russell Wilson this year, imagine the next year if he has a little bit of success with you and get him re-signed. Then what do you do?
Well, now you've got multiple ways that you can look at this. You can look at the draft, which, by the way, most of the draft gurus, and I'm not a draft guru. I mean, I do my study for about 3 months, right? I cram for about 3 months. I will not disrespect the scouts, the personnel people, or the people who do draft books for a living. I'm not those people, okay? But from what I have heard from those people, there might be 5 first-round quarterbacks in next year's draft, and that class is going to be better than everybody except for Cam Ward this year. That's what I'm hearing. So getting a legit franchise prospect next year should not be that hard. Even if you wind up with 7 or 8 wins and you're somewhere in the middle of the draft, you should be able to get one of those 5 guys, even if you got to trade up and give up some draft capital to do it. So I don't think that's a bad plan. Now, of course, what are you doing with the starter if you're only going to draft a rookie next year? Well, they signed Winston to a 2-year deal. So to be frank, they protected themselves in that at least they'll know he's in the room as a veteran presence. Maybe Russell Wilson decides to re-sign here. If things go so well and he gets them into the playoffs or gets them to a 9-8 record and they don't get in, maybe they'll be happy enough with what he did that they'd be willing to give him a little bit of a raise and maybe retain him for another year. Who knows? The point is that playbook is wide open. Anything could happen. We also don't know what other free agent quarterbacks might be cut, traded, or available next March. You know, there's a lot of ways that whole thing could go, but you can worry more about that next year. You don't have to really deal with that right now as the Giants simply try to get back to being competitive again. After being 3-14 last year, if all of a sudden, well, if they're 8-9 this year, or if they're 7-10, I mean, seriously, that's a significant improvement. That gets you back to at least, I don't know, having maybe waist-high level quicksand instead of being up to your neck.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go from 3-14 to being a Super Bowl contender. That doesn't happen in 1 year usually. That's like lightning in a bottle. So it's more realistic to say, get back to sniffing 500, get back to being a team that's playing meaningful games at the end of the season. And once you take that step, once you crawl, now you can maybe walk the following season. And again, if the Giants have a really good rookie class in the draft this year, think about how much better the rest of the roster is going to be going into 2026.
Yeah, I've been saying that this year, this is one of the first years the Giants didn't have to go in and get a bunch of starters with every draft pick. I believe we have a solid core of players here to where you can draft best players available for most of this draft here coming up. Maybe the only number 3 pick is the only pick that you would want to get a starter because naturally you would want to start with the number 3 pick. So my question to you is, P-Dot, what are some of the positions you think the New York Giants should attack in this upcoming draft? What are some of the positions you think?
Yeah, the starting position they need to fortify is defensive line. They need someone who can play next to Dexter Lawrence and be a 3-technique pass rushing defensive lineman. Quite frankly, Leonard Williams was perfect, but as we know, he is in Seattle now.
Mm-hmm.
They need one of those guys to be in the starting lineup. Otherwise, I like where the linebackers are. I like the edge rushers. You could use a third edge rusher for depth. There's no doubt about that. But that's a depth piece. That's not a starter. You've got starting corners. You've got starting safeties. So I think your defense is in pretty good shape, but you've got to do something about the defensive line. Now, Chauncey Golson, the free agent they signed from the Cowboys, can be that 3-technique defensive tackle. He can also be a run-stopping, edge-setting defensive end.
Yeah, I like Golson.
He's a good player, and he's just coming into his prime now. So let's see exactly how good he is. I would still draft somebody on the defensive line to take some snaps in that rotation. Okay? Flip it to the other side. Well, it seems to me I would like them potentially to draft a young stud offensive lineman that's got traits that Carmen Brasillo can work with. Mm-hmm. One of these really strong, powerful bulldozer types, preferably on the interior, so that the Giants can add depth there. And who knows, if the kid is that good, maybe he challenges to be a starter this year. I'd love to see them get one of those guys. I wouldn't mind seeing them get another speedster at wide receiver and challenge, the back end of the depth chart in the wide receiver room. And then the other thing that I would really like to see them get is a big bulldozer of a running back.
Yep.
Okay? Because I really like Tyrone Tracy, and I think Singletary is a steady, reliable pro, but neither one of those guys are big bruisers who can just pound away at the line of scrimmage and forcibly push the pile to get extra yardage. I'd love to see them get one of those horses, somebody like a Scatterboo, who I'm sure you're familiar with coming up in this draft. That's
Seen
the
him at
kind
the
of guy
Senior
I'd love
Bowl,
to see.
everything. Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of guy. So that's what I think the Giants need. I don't think they're that far away from being a really solid team.
I mean, I'm saying that as well. I'm just thinking they're gonna need that quarterback of the future, man, because going against this division, everybody's set at the QB position but us. I like Russell. I just think he's a 1-year rental. You got Jameis Winston. He can play next year if you need him to play next year. And they really believe there are 5 guys that are going to be better than what Shedeur Sanders is this year, next year. So the 5 guys that I'm thinking is Drew Aller, Nussmeier, is Nico if he comes out from Tennessee. Who else?
I like Nussmeier myself. I haven't done a lot of work on next year's quarterbacks, but I do like Nussmeier a lot.
Yeah, I've studied Nussmeier a whole lot too. It's gonna be very interesting to see what they do going into the future. But as far as those bruising running backs, what about Ollie Gordon? Have you seen Ollie Gordon?
Yes, I have. He's on my list. My list. I think I'd prefer Scatterboo, but Ollie Gordon, I would have no objection to taking him. Believe you me. None
I love Ollie Gordon, man. Going to that Senior Bowl, it was pretty dope. We got to interview a bunch of players. One of those big old offensive linemen that I think they could get in the second round, and he could play guard. He played right tackle, but Savia Nye, from Arizona. If I'm saying his last name right, I always get his last name wrong.
I think he's going to be a guard, so I would agree with you. I can see that.
Would you think the second round be too high for him?
I do. I would probably wait to day 3, the third round, day 2. But in the third round, the Giants have 2 third-round picks.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, they're at 65 and 99, I believe.
Yep, 65 and 99.
What if I said to you like Miles Frazier out of LSU?
I did a heavy scout to him. He's very good. I like him too. Very quick.
You'd be okay with that, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely would. Scatterboo. What makes Scatterboo your favorite? Let's talk some draft people here. What makes Scatterboo your favorite big bruising back? Besides the obvious, the plays and everything, what about the mentality do you think that he could come over here and change things?
He's a junkyard dog. He's a junkyard dog. In fact, let me pull up my notes. I talked to Scatterboo. I talked to him at the combine.
Okay.
Oh, I had a conversation with him at the combine. And let me see here. What did I write on him? Because I take all these notes when we go to the combine, and I spend a week there. We talk to these guys. And part of what I'm doing myself is finding out what makes them tick. And their demeanor, how they handle themselves, how they answer the questions. Let me see what I got here for Scatterboo. Oh, my goodness. I want to go through it. Let's see what we got here. Ollie Gordon, by the way. Oh, boy. I
like Ollie Gordon, man.
You know what I wrote about Ollie Gordon? I wrote about Ollie Gordon. You can tell this is a guy, and it's not just off the tape. It's about his mentality. Very aggressive. Clearly enjoys being a downhill player. Okay? He loves contact. And I remember when I asked him about pass protection, and he says he just loves to get into guys and stand them up.
He's 6'4", 230. He's solid, man.
Oh yeah.
Solid kid.
So Ollie Gordon is a guy who's on my list. Now, Scatterboo. What did I write on Scatterboo? All right. He says here, it's all about punishing the defender so that they don't want to play 4 quarters against you that day.
Okay. That's what we need.
Okay.
That's what we need.
He says he has worked on his speed and being a little bit more of a mature guy and a better leader as he has gone through college. He's improved his body fat and his muscle. He says his game is all about being physical and having deceptive speed. And obviously, when I asked him, well, what would you want to show people at the pro day and at the combine? He said, I want to show them that I can catch the ball and do route running too, so that they know I'm a complete back. Because too many people try to pigeonhole him as just a battering ram. He wants people to know he's got more to offer than that, so that they don't just restrict his abilities.
That's a fact, and I think he can
I
do it
enjoyed
too.
talking to him.
Yeah, he's a trip, man. That dude, he's gonna be a good player, man. Whoever gets him, he's gonna be a good player. I'm thinking Jim Harbaugh over there in San Diego are
I
going to be
know,
looking at
I
him.
know. I think you're going to be able. I'm
Not San
thinking to
Diego,
be.
Los Angeles, but yeah,
Yeah,
the
I
Chargers.
think he's probably with the running backs in this draft. There are a lot of running backs that are going to be in the third
Mm-hmm.
and fourth rounds, right? Who are going to make it in the NFL. There's that sweet spot, right? You got Gentry, who's clearly number one. Omarion Hampton, I think, is clearly number two. And you got a few other guys in there. And then there's this big cluster in the
Yep.
third and fourth rounds. There's a big cluster, a big ball of running backs who I think are all going to make it. And it depends on what style you want. And
Exactly.
certainly Gordon and Scatterboo are in the blue collar bulldozer, just snot bubble kind of running backs.
We need one of those. We haven't had one of those since Jacobs. To be honest with you,
That's why I want one. You understand? See, my philosophy isn't that strange. So many people don't seem to get it, and they try to poo-poo, but it's not very hard to see. Especially if you go by the track record of the Giants' blueprints for these kinds of styles and these kinds of players, and you see how they've won in the past. It's still football. You still have to run. You still have to tackle. You still have to catch, throw, and block. They didn't change the game. I appreciate that there is more passing today. I do. I know the rules did get tweaked a bit, and there's a lot more passing. Although, if you've noticed, last year was the first year in NFL history that the top 6 teams in rushing the football all made the playoffs, which tells you that the run game has started to come back into the fold again.
That's a fact. That is an absolute fact. So, speaking of that, we all know Brian Daboll has been calling the plays. John Mayer said what he said about the play calling and everything. Do you feel that Brian Daboll was restricted as far as his play calling because of the quarterback position, with Daniel Jones restricted on the way that he can call his plays? And do you think that you will see a more wide open playbook this year, or we're going to see the continuous dump off passes and hope somebody breaks off 5 tackles and gets extra yardage? Like, how do you see this offense moving forward? Do you see more running? Do you see more passing? Just like, what's your vision of what this offense will look like this season coming up?
Yeah, I still think that Brian Daboll wants to rely on a lot of yak yardage, which the Giants did not get much of at all last year. Now, I also believe that he would like to be able to throw the ball a lot deeper, much more often. To say that he was restricted in his playbook, I do believe that was the case to some degree, but it wasn't just because Daniel Jones turned out to be very inconsistent, and as his last few games as a Giant went downhill, that was also for a number of other reasons as well. The Giants were, I believe they finished second in the NFL in drop passes last year, which was a significant problem. They also had an offensive line that after the first 6 weeks of the season, when Andrew Thomas then got hurt, began to crumble like a stale graham cracker. And that became a problem. Then, of course, you have to remember it took a little while for Tracy to wrestle away the starting job in the backfield from Singletary. And so that was also a bit of an issue. So I think there were a lot of reasons why you did not see the complete display of what Daboll would like to have done last year. And whether or not he calls plays this year, look, I think it's still on the table. I don't know if he's going to call them or not, but we know he's going to have a significant influence in the playbook. Even if he does turn the plays back over to Mike Kafka, I'm sure that Daboll's fingerprints are going to be all over it. Now, just remember this. If he does do it, Kafka called the plays during 2022 when the Giants went to the playoffs. So that's not necessarily a bad thing if he decides to hand it over.
I actually would think that would be one of the better things for him to do, so he can focus on being a head coach, because you are a head coach for your job. You need to have as much free time as you need to focus on the actual goal. And I believe Kafka is a very good play caller. I do believe that. Spoke with him at the Senior Bowl as well. I think he's a savant when it comes to actually play calling. And I really thought he was going to get that Saints job. They gave it to Kellen Moore at the last second, but I thought he was going to get that Saints job as the head coach.
I know.
So
look, he's a good dude, and I do appreciate everything that he's done here. He's a professional. He's a really good guy and a smart guy. And whether or not he calls the plays, the bottom line is this. The Giants have improved with their quarterback situation. That's obvious. You'd like to believe that Neighbors and Robinson will continue their development. Slayton is just a steady pro. Hopefully one of the other receivers, either that they have on the depth chart or perhaps maybe somebody that they pick up in the draft, will also help to that room. I think you're going to see a lot more out of Johnson, Theo Johnson, the tight end, who's good. Hopefully he'll be healthy.
Obviously, that needs to be.
I think he's a really good player and a bigger threat in the receiving game than most people believe.
Yeah, I think Theo Johnson can actually be a star if he's utilized correctly as far as getting him up the scene. The dude's 6'6", 260, and can run.
Yes.
It's kind of hard not to use that.
Yes. I
want to ask you, yeah, exactly. I want to ask you a question about a player that I have questions about, and that's Wan'Dale Robinson. Now, I've been on record saying that Wan'Dale Robinson receiving 140 targets, that cannot happen if you want an offense that's going to be really successful. And not saying that he's a bad player, but he's 5'7", 5'8" on a good day. And he's not the type of receiver that is going to route you up or go over the top of you, do back shoulder throws to. He's the guy that you get the ball in space. Is there a different plan for Wan'Dale Robinson this year, or will we see another year where he's almost the leader in targets if it wasn't for Malik Neighbors?
Well, I think there are two parts to that question. Number one, we know Russell Wilson can throw the deep moon ball whenever he wants to, and he's still one of the best in the league. Him, Rodgers, and Stafford are the three best bomb throwers in the NFL. So I think that component, I think that component is going to be involved. And obviously Neighbors and Slayton, and hopefully Jalen Hyatt breaks out of his funk and becomes an important component to the passing game this year. Now, if that happens, then the guy who's going to be the emergency guy or the release guy or the underneath guy on those kinds of plays is going to be Wan'Dale Robinson. And he'll be the check down guy. Now, the thing about Russell Wilson is that if he doesn't see what he likes, he doesn't turn the ball over. His interception percentage is one of the lowest that you're going to find in the league. Any year that he's played, this guy does not throw interceptions. One of the reasons is if he doesn't see what he likes downfield, he's very quick to go to the check down. That's where Wan'Dale Robinson probably comes in. So how often is he going to get those plays? I think it depends a lot on how well the defense is playing their scheme and preventing Wilson from throwing the ball downfield, because he will not hesitate to go to Wan'Dale Robinson. Now, the good news is if the Giants can prove early in the season that they can make big plays downfield with this newfangled passing attack, that means those receivers will drag defenders further away from the line of scrimmage. And if Wilson checks down to Wan'Dale Robinson, he should have more room to operate and to get yak yardage. See, so there's a layered effect here by having Wilson in the building and hopefully gaining respect with the deep ball. It just opens everything else up. It could also open things up for Theo Johnson, because he could very easily be another underneath guy who's going to be available to catch balls if the defense is taking away the deep stuff.
So, what? Not saying
does that answer your question? I'm not sure if it answers.
That does answer my question. That's kind of what I wanted to hear as far as us being able to go down the field a little bit more to open up that area for Wan'Dale Robinson, because I believe he's a receiver that you have to get him the ball in space in order for him to be at his maximum potential. Not throwing the ball to him. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the Giants have not been able to get defenses to respect their deep stuff, either because they couldn't connect on them or because the Giants quite simply, and I don't mean any disrespect, but with all the drop passes that they had, with the offensive line woes that they had, which didn't allow for time for those plays to develop, there was no reason for defenses to respect the deep ball. And so even if their secondary was playing a too deep zone, everybody else was cheating up.
Yeah.
And the linebackers were clogging up the medium range routes. So every time the Giants would throw those routes, their guys would immediately be tackled, and they weren't going to get any yak yardage because there was no space or room to operate.
And so what they're hoping is that the threat of Russell Wilson being a great deep ball passer, which he is, opens up the offense to where you can throw those quick passes to get the yak yardage and things of such.
Bingo.
Is that the only thing they're banking on to get that going?
It's not the only thing that they're banking on, but it's a primary component, because once you gain respect from a defense and force them to worry about some other thing, now they must adjust and play you differently. And every coach will always tell you, oh, we want to take what the defense gives us, right? Coaches say that 5,000 times a day because they can't take away everything. So we'll take what they give us. Well, defenses have been taking away a lot of what David's offense wants to do because the Giants didn't do anything else to spread them out and break them out of that.
So wouldn't Jalen Hyatt help with that? Why Jalen Hyatt can't touch the field?
Jalen Hyatt, to me, is one of the biggest mysteries of my career. He's a really good kid. He's eager. He works his butt off. He gained a little bit of muscle and definition from when he came out of Tennessee, when I thought he might be a little too frail. But he showed, in my opinion, that he now has the mature body makeup to be able to play in this league. But for some reason, nothing has connected with him. I don't know what it is. Is it the playbook? Is it when he's on the field, he can't seem to process things right? I'm not sure. I don't have an answer for that. But what I know is this. He now has a quarterback, and I think the makings of a decent offensive line that can make some of those deep balls more possible than they were in the past.
Yeah,
those are plays that he should be able to excel in, regardless of what has happened during the first 2 years of his career. In fact, quite frankly, in his third season, if all he does, and I mean this, and it's a low bar, but if all he does is get, 45 targets, 35 targets, but those are deep balls, and he catches most of them and makes those plays, the impact that he will have just by running those routes is going to open things up for the rest of this offense.
Thank you.
It could be huge.
That's what I didn't understand. Even if he didn't, you didn't like the way he ran routes or anything. Just him on the field running streaks or running posts, opening things up. If you want to get the ball to Wan'Dale Robinson in space to where he can maneuver and get yards after the catch, I'm not seeing why he couldn't be on the field to at least do that, just to be a decoy.
You know what the problem, though, to this point, even when he gets on the field, they hardly have utilized him. And so with that in mind, why should a defense respect him to spread the field? You have to earn respect. That's the problem. You have to earn the respect of the defense in order to make them adjust, to put them in a position where you can take advantage of them. And to this point, Jalen Hyatt has done nothing to command the respect of a defense.
That
That's
is
why I
very
think
true.
it's huge. If the Giants are really going to be as competitive as they want to be in December of this year, they need to, and this is huge, they need to have a good September. They need to
Yeah.
come out clicking on offense as soon as possible, and they need to do some really good things in September and October to establish things on film that will make defenses react. Because right now, defenses pretty much look at the Giants and they say, hey, we know exactly where we have to play and the style we have to use to clog these guys up and to get them caught in the quicksand. Until you command the respect of those defensive coordinators and force them to move out of those game plans, you will never go anywhere.
Yeah, that's a fact. We had nobody's respect last year. I was calling the games last year, and I was saying all they're doing is choking up on us. They're just
Yep.
slowly pulling down, and now you're not able to now you're not even able to run the ball because everybody's waiting for you to do exactly what you're finna do. That's what I'm
Defenses
saying.
knew that they could choke off the Giants' offense and
That's a
suffocate them.
fact. That's a fact. So that's why I'm thinking of guys like Theo Johnson, guys like Jalen Hyatt. There's got to be some way that you can utilize those guys to where you can open up the field to allow the talent of a Malik Neighbors to get in the middle of the field, to catch in the middle of the field, and one person miss, it's a party now because Malik Neighbors is a monster when it comes to maneuvering in and out and getting extra yards after the catch. Wan'Dale Robinson is good at that too. So
here's what we know. We know this. We know that Dable can roll the pocket with Wilson because he is comfortable with a moving pocket and he is comfortable throwing on the run. We know that Wilson is also comfortable with quick game.
Mm-hmm.
We know that Wilson is very comfortable checking it down and getting the ball to those guys if they can create the respect downfield. So these are all, and of course we know he's got the deep ball. So all the elements are there to now unclog the pipes, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
They are now there. Wilson provides a lot of aspects that can help unclog the pipes. That's why this was always, in my mind, once Stafford was off the board, Russell Wilson made the most sense.
Because they're trying to get the ball deep, which is very understandable. So just questions about this team. What do we do at the right guard position? We didn't get Will Fries. We didn't get Jenkins or any of the top guards. We re-signed Van Rotten, and there's reports that Evan Neal would be moving to the guard position. How do you feel about where we stand at the guard position now, and what should we do going forward with that guard position? Like, how do you feel about the right guard position? Because that's really the only weakness I really see with the offensive line. And Van Rotten did well when he was healthy last year, I do believe. So,
well, he played every game. He was the most consistent lineman from start to finish the whole season. It's a competition right now between Van Roten, Aaron Stinney, Jake Kubas, Izudu, and, of course, the possibility, as today Joe Shane said, that they asked the representatives of Evan Neal if he would cross-train, and Neal's people told the Giants whatever's best for the team. So you have potentially 5 different guys who could battle for a starting guard spot. I just named 5 different guys. Now, I'm not against necessarily, as I just said to you, you want to draft a Miles Frazier in the middle rounds of the draft? I've got no problem with that because, quite frankly, while I think those guys are functional players, I mean, could I necessarily put my feet in the ground and say I'm absolutely positive that they're going to be a high-level starter? I don't think I could say that. So
not by either one of them.
Yeah. Now, I think out of that list, they probably feel, and again, if Van Roten starts and plays as well as he did last year, it's not bad. But if you could improve by potentially drafting somebody in the middle rounds, in the third or fourth round, and get a hulking kid. I mean, heck, David Deal was a 5th round pick.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not impossible to find somebody there who could challenge for a starting job. I don't think it's a bad idea maybe to take one.
I think you do have to take one, and I wouldn't mind one in the second round. If you feel somebody in the second round is a very good guy, like you could pick a tackle, maybe the tackle out of Oregon. You can move him to guard if you wanted to, or he can play right tackle for you. You can move Illuminor in the guard if you wanted to do something like that. I'm not against that, but I do know that people like a Zulu, McKeithen, I don't even know if McKeithen's still here or not.
He's not with the team anymore.
Yeah, he's not with the team anymore, but you're going to have a very good backup offensive line when it comes to the Giants, because like you say about the DBs, our offensive linemen always get hurt too. At least
what about a guy like Tate Ratledge out of Georgia?
Yeah, we love Tate Ratledge. Tate Ratledge out of Georgia. I think he's a 2nd to 3rd round pick as well. If he's there at the 2nd, it is a pretty high 2nd round pick, but I think you get a starter.
I don't know that I take him that high, but I would certainly consider him in the 3rd round.
Yeah. If you could get Tate Ratledge in the 3rd round, great. Take him. Because I think he's the starter as soon as he comes here. I think he's better than what we have out there. I'm just being honest with you.
Could be. I'll tell you what, he certainly has an edge about him.
Right. I mean, dude, I think he's better than what we have. And it's not saying that we have horrible right guards. I just think some of these guys that are coming out in this draft can actually fit in well with the JMS, with the John Runyon next to Illuminor. And hopefully you're able to keep Illuminor at right tackle to where we could get a solid right guard. And if you could protect Russell Wilson and allow these big, fast guys to get down the field, because you got Slayton, you got Hyatt, you got Theo Johnson. And if you want to get the deep pass, those guys can open up those lanes for the guys that you drafted to get the ball into their hands, where you can get the ball into Tyrone Tracy's hands and he can get two yards turned into 15 yards because you're worried about hiding them downfield. So I see the plan. I'm just trying to see how it's going to work, because you're right. You got to earn the respect. You got to, because if they don't respect you, you're not going to be able to do anything.
That's right. So, and that's why the first month of the season is going to be very important. And quite frankly, I'm very curious more than ever to see how the schedule pans out. We know who they're going to play, and it looks like it's going to be tough. But how does that first group of games, between games, 3, 4, 5, 6, they always say you got to be 4 games in before you kind of really know what you are. Well, I think the Giants in that first month of the season, they need to put some things on tape that will open some people's eyes and command some respect. So hopefully for their sake, they will be facing some of the better matchups on the schedule. Now, the league isn't going to do that just for the Giants. They're not going to do them any favors. They're going to do their schedule as they have to do it based on their computer. But I'm telling you, the first thing that I'm going to do when the Giants schedule comes out, first thing I'm going to look at is, okay, what does the first month of the season look like? What defenses are they going to play? And how could the Giants potentially do some damage against these defenses? Are we talking about heavy blitz defenses? Are we talking about zone coverage? We're talking about Tampa 2s? Are we talking about man-to-mans? Are we talking about press? Are we talking about heavy blitz? I want to see what kind of defenses the Giants are going to play in that first month, because I'm going to be watching during summer practice and training camp. I'm going to be watching to see what is it that the Giants really can do with their new roster, and how will it match up? Because if they don't match up well in the first month, it's going to be that much harder for them as the season goes on.
Because once you get a division play, it is no joke. Like, it is no joke. 0-6 in the division last year.
So you get it. I'm enjoying this conversation because you understand. I really appreciate talking to somebody who really gets it.
That's a fact, man. Oh man, I didn't know I had an hour of your time already. My bad.
Well, that's all right. I told you we could go an hour, so that's okay.
Okay. Well, last question here, P-Dot, because I know you got press conferences and everything coming up as well. What do you think we can do to change the narrative about the New York Giants in the NFC East division? Because right now, I believe we are the little boys of the division. And what I mean by that is everybody is like, yeah, check. We got the Giants. We going to beat them.
Yeah.
We need to focus. Like, how do we change that narrative this year? And do you believe it can change?
Well, you got to try to get to at least 500 in the division. It's just that simple. You know, you're going to play 6 division games. Okay? 6 division games. You got to win 3. Get to 3-3 in your division. Do I think the Giants can beat Dallas? Well, I don't know that today because there's still a draft to come and there's still a training camp to come. You know, ask me that the first week of September and I'll tell you what I think the roster can do. But if the Giants are going to gain respect by the end of this season, they're going to have to be a team that can be 500 in the division, or even if they go 2-4, are the 4 losses bad losses where they get hammered? Mm-hmm. Or are they losses where, how many times have they lost the game to Philadelphia in the final minute because of a touchdown or a field goal that the Eagles pulled out of their, well, I won't say where they pulled it out of. But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's a fact.
You know, so really, you know, that's what the Giants need to do. They need to be a 7, 8, 9 win team again to command respect around the league. And in the division, they got to win at least 2, but I would say 3 games in the division.
Yeah, I'm thinking, like you said, at least 2 to 3 games in the division. I would rather be 500, but if you win 2 games, you can't get stomped out the way you've been getting stomped out the past 4 to 5 years in this division. And now the Commanders have ascended. Now you can't even say at least we could beat the Commanders. Now the Commanders are looking down at you too. So
yeah, I know. It's been rough.
Yeah. So that's why guys like Cam Scatterboo, we need guys like that to come over here. I would love Scatterboo to be a Giant. The more I think about it, that would be some fun. Scatterboo as a Giant, that would be a lot of fun. Yeah. I like that idea. We could get him in the 3rd round because that's exactly where he's going to be because of that huge cluster of running backs. He's going to be somewhere in the 3rd round. May have to take 99 and move up to get him, but yeah, that's going to be some fun, man. Scatterboo as a Giant, I'll take that.
Scatterboo is one of those construction workers who's wielding a sledgehammer. You know the kind of guy I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. I'm telling you. And he looks like a Giant. He looks like a Giant. I swear. But it's been, you know, it's always a pleasure talking to you, P-Dot, man. Welcome to the ABS Network, your first interview with the ABS Network. Always good to talk with some Giants football with you. We normally agree on a lot of things, as we did here today. The only thing I disagree on is that quarterback position. I don't think those quarterbacks are going to be better than Shedeur Sanders or Ward next year. I looked at them, man. I'm telling you. It's not what they think. But hopefully, if we get Travis Hunter at 3, I'm not going to complain because I know the type of player that he is. So we'll see, man. We'll see. Any last words,
man?
Yeah. Any last words before you get out of here, P-Dot?
No, I just want to say it's been a pleasure because certainly enjoyed talking Giants football on a very intelligent level with you today. And remember, there's nothing right or wrong about an opinion. Facts can be right or wrong. Opinions, there's a lot of gray area.
That's a fact. Hey, this has been P-Dot right here on Talk Your Talk, man. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next one. This is an Aboriginal Sports Network original series.